My sister accused me of selling Mom's $35,000 diamond necklace just to get me thrown out. My parents called me a family curse and locked the door while it snowed. I picked up my suitcase, looked at the security camera, and seed. Good, keep believing her. By sunrise, Dad found a notice on the front door with my name at the top. Snow was collecting on the suitcase handle before the zipper was even shut. My father stood in the doorway with one hand on the deadbolt, looking at me the way you look at something you found in a drain. "Family curse," he said. "That is what you are, Colette. A curse on this house." The door shut. The deadbolt turned. The porch light clicked off. Through the upstairs window, my sister was laughing, watching me stand in the cold with nowhere to go. She wanted to enjoy it. What she did not want was for me to look up. But I did. And the laugh stopped. I turned toward the small black dome mounted above the garage, the security camera I installed 2 Thanksgivings ago. My parents never learned to check the footage. They barely remembered it was there. But I wired it. I set up the cloud backup. And I still had full remote access from my phone. At the edge of the driveway I stopped, looked directly into the lens, and said 5 words into the cold air. "Good. Keep believing her." My family thought I sorted rocks for a living. What I actually do is evaluate diamonds worth more than their house. I am a GIA-certified gemological appraiser. My professional opinion has held up in court 11 times. And my sister had just accused me of stealing a $35,000 diamond necklace. Here is what Tanya told them. She said she saw me near Mom's dresser. She said the necklace was missing. She said she found it in my coat pocket. My mother pressed both hands to her chest and whispered, "I knew it." My father packed my suitcase himself. Nobody asked to see the security footage. Nobody asked me what happened. Tanya stood in the hallway performing grief so perfectly that for a moment even I wanted to believe her. "I did not want to say anything," she said, her voice cracking at exactly the right pitch. But Mom deserved to know. The accusation had 3 errors I caught before I reached my car. The necklace is a 2.8-carat cushion-cut diamond pendant in a platinum Art Deco setting. It does not fit in a coat pocket without the chain bunching visibly. The security camera covers the upstairs hallway, including the bedroom door. And the 3rd error was the one Tanya did not know I had already found. 6 weeks earlier, at Thanksgiving. I noticed the light coming through the diamond on my mother's neck was wrong. Too clean. Too bright. I took a discreet photo across the table while everyone was passing cranberry sauce. At home, I opened it on my calibrated monitor and spent 40 minutes staring at the prong setting. The original pendant had 4 claw basket prongs, hand-finished, with a slight asymmetry I had documented 6 years ago. The pendant in the photo had 6-prong cathedral prongs, machine-cut. Commercial. That was not my grandmother's diamond. Somebody had swapped it. I started a trace through the industry database I use for estate work and asked my colleague Ramona to flag anything matching. Then, I waited. The accusation came 6 weeks later, and it was not impulsive. Tanya knew that if I stayed close to the family, I would eventually examine the necklace. She was not punishing me. She was quarantining the one person who could hold a loop to that pendant and know in 10 seconds the diamond was gone. She did not throw me out because she hated me. She threw me out because she was afraid of what I would see. I sat in my car for 3 minutes. Snow covered the tracks my suitcase had left. I almost called my mother. My thumb sat on her name for 11 seconds. Then I called my attorney instead. The demand letter had been drafted 2 weeks earlier, after the Thanksgiving photo confirmed my suspicion. I had hoped I would never have to send it. The attorney's name is Charlotte, and she charges $400 an hour, and when I told her to deploy the courier, she did not ask why. She asked what time. "Tonight," I said. "Delivery by sunrise." By 6:47 the next morning, the courier confirmation hit my phone. Delivered. Front door. Signature not required. 20 minutes later, Franklin started calling. Then Donna. Then Tanya. I let every call go to voicemail and poured a second cup of coffee in my apartment. The same apartment I had been living in since I was 26. The studio with the south-facing window and the work desk where Pearl's Loop sat next to my certifications. The apartment my family had never once visited. Franklin's voicemail was 17 seconds of controlled fury. He did not raise his voice. He never raises his voice when he is scared. He gets quieter. He said 4 words. Come, get your letter. Donna's voicemail was 40 seconds of crying and the phrase, "How could you do this to us?" repeated twice without irony. Tanya did not leave a voicemail. She sent one text, "You are going to regret this." I screenshotted the text, forwarded it to Charlotte, and finished my coffee standing at the window while the sun came through the glass and warmed the back of my neck for the first time in weeks. The demand letter was 2 pages. It stated that the accusation was false. It referenced the security camera footage proving I had not accessed the bedroom. It noted that preliminary professional analysis suggested the necklace currently in Donna's possession was not consistent with the original GIA-certified stone. And it gave them 72 hours to retract the accusation or face formal proceedings for defamation. My name was at the top of every page. Complainant, Colette. Before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand the specific history that made my family believe Tanya over me without a single question. Because this was not the first time they chose her. It was just the most expensive. The necklace belonged to my grandmother Pearl. She wore it every Sunday for 40 years. She wore it to my mother's wedding. She wore it the day she sat me down at age 11, pulled a small brass loop from a velvet pouch, and held it up to the pendant so I could see the tiny world inside the diamond. "Look at that mark," she said. "Lower left. See it? That little cloud. Every real diamond has something like that. A fingerprint. Something it carried up from the earth." She pressed the loop into my palm. "The truth is always in the details. Baby, people lie. Stones do not. Pearl died when I was 19. The necklace went to my mother. The loop went to me. It is brass and scratched and weighs almost nothing. And it is the reason I have a career, and the reason I already knew, before I reached my car that night, that the stone on my mother's neck was not real." When I was 14, Tanya took $2,200 from my bedroom. Money I had saved from 2 years of babysitting for 3 different families in our neighborhood. 2 years of weekend evenings and summer afternoons watching other people's children so I could have something of my own. She used it for a prom dress, shoes, hair, nails, and a rented limo she split with her friends. I found the empty envelope in her trash the next morning, the glue still tacky where I had sealed it. When I told my parents, my father pressed his lips together and said, "She is your sister, Colette. Do not be petty about money." When I was 21, my parents paid for Tanya's wedding. The florist, the venue, the photographer, the caterer. $48,000. The same year, I applied for my GIA certification. The tuition was $7,800. I asked my parents for help. Donna patted my hand and told me they simply could not afford it right now, not after the wedding. I worked the closing shift at a jewelry counter in a suburban mall for 14 months to cover the cost myself. The fluorescent lights in that store gave me headaches that lasted until morning. Some nights I studied gemstone theory in the break room between customers, eating cold rice from a plastic container, while Tanya posted honeymoon photos from Santorini. When I was 24, my grandmother's engagement ring, a 1.4-carat emerald cut solitaire in white gold, was given to Tanya as an early inheritance. Nobody asked me. Nobody mentioned it until it was already on Tanya's finger. When I asked my mother why, she said, "You will get the necklace someday, Colette. Tanya needed the ring now. She is building a home." The ring Pearl had worn for 36 years was on my sister's hand by Tuesday. By Friday, Tanya was showing it to her friends at brunch and calling it vintage. And when I was 27, Tanya and Grant asked to borrow $8,000 for what Grant called a short-term investment opportunity. I gave them the money because I still believed that one act of trust would eventually be returned. The investment was a sports betting account. Grant lost $11,000 in 4 months. The $8,000 was never mentioned again. When I brought it up at a family dinner, Franklin put down his fork and told me to let it go because family does not keep a ledger. 3 weeks later, he asked me to help with his taxes. I did them for free. That is the kind of ledger my family keeps. Every time, the answer was the same: Tanya needs it more. Tanya is struggling. Tanya is building something. You are fine, Colette. You are always fine. And every time, I was. Meanwhile, Tanya and Grant rented a luxury apartment in the Heights for $3,800 a month, subsidized by my parents because Franklin believed Grant was about to turn a corner. Grant drove a $62,000 Audi Q7 that smelled like new leather and overconfidence. Tanya rotated designer handbags the way other people rotate seasonal jackets. Their Instagram looked like a lifestyle brand. Their bank balance looked like a warning letter. But nobody in my family ever asked to see the numbers. They only asked me. Because my numbers were always clean and always available, and always quietly replenishing the family account that nobody admitted existed. I drove a 9-year-old Civic with a cracked dashboard. I wore the same 3 blazers to family dinners. Franklin once looked at my car in the driveway and told Donna within earshot that it was embarrassing for a woman my age to drive something like that. He never once asked what I earned. He never once asked what I did at work beyond sorting rocks. Asking would have complicated the story he had already written about me. The difficult one. The cold one. The daughter who refused to be part of the family. Until one of them stole a diamond off my dead grandmother's neck and tried to make me take the blame. Thank you for staying with me through this. If you have ever been the person your family calls strong while they take everything you built, you already know where this story is going. Hit subscribe to Family Secret Tales, leave a comment telling me what city you are watching from, and stay with me. Because what happened at my office 2 weeks later is the reason I am telling you this. The trace, almost, did not work. The first 3 searches returned nothing. EstateGems indexes private sales on a rolling delay, and the filters I was using were too broad. Cushion cut, 2 to 3 carats, platinum setting. Hundreds of results, none of them right. I almost closed the database after the 3rd page. My eyes were burning from the screen and the coffee had gone cold at my elbow. Then I added 1 filter. Art Deco, pre-1940. Natural inclusion documented. 1 result appeared. Ramona knocked on my office door at 9:15 the next morning and set a printout on my desk without a word. She had pulled the full listing overnight. EstateGems, private sale. Cushion cut diamond, 2 8 carats. Art Deco platinum setting. Natural inclusion lower left pavilion. Sold 11 weeks ago. Sale price, $28,000. The seller's registered email address was tanya.l.grant@gmail.com. For about 10 seconds, the room was perfectly still. Ramona stood in the doorway watching me. She is the kind of woman who does not fill silence with noise. She waited. The printout sat on my desk next to Pearl's loop, and the numbers on the page were as clean and permanent as any stone I had ever graded. I read the email address 3 times. Not because I needed to. Because some part of me was still hoping it would change into a stranger's name. That the person who sold my grandmother's diamond would turn out to be a burglar. A stranger. Anyone other than the woman who grew up in the same house as me. It did not change. The letters stayed where they were. Tanya L. Grant. $28,000. My grandmother's diamond, pulled from its setting, placed on a platform that caters to anonymous sellers and turned into cash. I traced the deposit through a bank statement Tanya had accidentally left visible in a shared family cloud album. A screenshot of her banking app she had posted to show Donna a restaurant charge. The $28,000 deposit was right there, 3 lines above the restaurant, time-stamped and undeniable. She had not even bothered to open a separate account. She put the money from selling our grandmother's necklace into the same account she used to buy groceries. Then came the part that made my hands stop moving on the keyboard. 3 weeks after selling the diamond, Tanya posted a photo on Instagram. A new Gucci bag. $4,200, per the retail tag she left deliberately visible in the shot. 14 comments from friends saying she deserved it. The bag was purchased with money that had been hanging around my grandmother's neck since 1974. And then, the final layer. 2 weeks after accusing me, Donna filed a homeowner's insurance claim for the stolen necklace. Value listed, $35,000. The claim named me as the suspected thief. Tanya's name appeared on the supporting statement as the witness. And at the bottom of the claim form, in the box marked policyholder signature, was my mother's handwriting. Tanya had not just stolen the diamond. She had not just framed me for it. She had walked her own mother to a kitchen table, handed her a pen, and guided her hand to a line that could put her in front of a federal fraud investigator. Donna signed it the way she signs everything Tanya puts in front of her. Without reading. Without questioning. With the same blind trust she had used to pack my suitcase and lock the door. My mother's name was on a federal document for a crime her favorite daughter committed. That was the moment my hands stopped moving on the keyboard and stayed still for a very long time. I tipped off the carrier's Special Investigations Unit that afternoon. I submitted the EstateGems listing, the bank deposit screenshot, the GIA report, and the timeline showing the real necklace was sold 3 months before it was reported stolen. The Sioux investigator's name was Deakins. He thanked me twice and said the word referral in a tone that suggested someone was about to have a very difficult year. The investigation notice would arrive at my parents' house within days. But I was not going to wait for paperwork to do what I could do with a loop and a room full of witnesses. I called Uncle Neil on a Thursday evening. Neil is my father's younger brother, a quiet man who builds furniture in his garage and has never raised his voice at a family gathering. He is also the only person in my family who has ever looked at me and seen something other than a resource to spend. When I was 22 and sitting in a parking lot outside the GIA testing center with the engine off and the windows fogging and a registration deadline on a paper I could not afford, Neil's truck pulled up next to my car. The lot was empty. He got out, walked to my window, and stood there with his hands in his jacket pockets until I rolled it down. He did not ask why my face was wet. He could see the paper. He could do the math. He reached into his glove compartment and handed me a plain white envelope. Inside was $3,000 in cash and a note in his handwriting. Your grandmother told me to give this to whichever one of you picked up the loop. You picked it up, Colette. That money finished my certification. He never told Franklin. He never told Donna. He never asked for it back. The only time he ever referenced it was the look he gave me at my first professional evaluation. When I showed him my GIA certificate framed on my office wall, he touched the frame once with his knuckle and nodded. That was enough. I told Neil I needed a favor. I asked him to contact Franklin and tell him I wanted to clear the air. Tell him I was inviting the family to my office. Tell Donna to wear the necklace. What are you doing, Colette? Neil asked. My job, I said. Neil paused for a long time. Then he said, I will be there. If you have ever waited for the one moment when every quiet thing you built finally speaks louder than every loud thing they broke, do not leave this story now. Subscribe to Family Secret Tales, drop a like, and stay right here. Because the next 15 minutes are the reason this story exists. They came on a Saturday. 11 o'clock. The auction house is a converted bank building downtown with marble floors and brass-framed display cases and the kind of hush that makes people lower their voices when they walk in. My family had never seen it. They had never once asked to visit. I watched them from the second floor landing as they came through the door. Franklin walked in first, wearing his good coat, looking around the way a man looks around when he realizes the room is bigger than the story he told himself about the person who works there. His eyes went to the display cases, then to the oil paintings above the reception desk, then to the brass nameplate by the staircase that reads Whitfield and Lacey, Est, 1987. For 1 second, his face changed. It was not guilt. It was not pride. It was the brief flicker of a man discovering a room he should have been invited to years ago. Donna followed, clutching her purse with both hands, the necklace visible at her throat. She looked smaller in this building. The ceilings are high, and the stone is old, and the light is specific, calibrated to reveal what other rooms hide. She did not look up. She looked at the floor. Tanya came last, holding Grant's arm. Grant's eyes were already scanning for exits. Ramona met them in the lobby and led them to the appraisal suite. The room has a central examination table, overhead calibrated lighting, a mounted digital display connected to the magnification unit, and 4 chairs along the wall for clients. It smells like clean glass and toner. Every surface is designed to make small things visible. Neil was already seated. He stood when they entered and nodded once at me. Franklin did not look at him. Franklin looked at me. "We are here," Franklin said, unbuttoning his coat, "because your uncle asked us to come, and because your mother and I believe that everyone deserves a chance to make things right." He sat down and crossed his arms. "So, make it right, Colette." I did not answer immediately. The silence lasted 3 seconds. Franklin took it as guilt. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to the register he uses when he believes he is delivering wisdom. "Your mother has not slept in 2 weeks because of what you did. Your sister cries every night. And where are you? Hiding in a building full of other people's jewelry, playing expert, pretending you matter." He looked at Ramona, then back at me. "You want to know why we believed Tanya? Because Tanya built a family. Tanya gave us grandchildren. You gave us a lawyer's letter and a grudge. If your grandmother could see what you have become, she would be ashamed of you." Ramona's hand stopped mid-reach for a clipboard. Neil's jaw tightened. Neither of them said a word. But the air in the room changed the way air changes when someone says something they will never be able to take back. I let the sentence land. I let it sit in the room. I let everyone hear it. And then I turned to my mother. Tanya took the chair closest to the door. She had not said a word since entering. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her nails were perfect. Her face was arranged into an expression of wounded patience. "I just want my sister back," she said softly. "But she has to admit what she did first." Donna reached up and touched the pendant at her neck. "I wore it today because you asked," she said to me. "I want you to see it and tell me the truth." "I appreciate that, Mom." My voice was level, professional. The same voice I use when I present an appraisal to a probate judge. "May I see it?" Professional habit. Donna unclasped the chain and placed the pendant in my palm. The weight was wrong immediately. Platinum is dense. This setting was rhodium-plated brass, light as a bottle cap. But I did not say that yet. I carried it to the examination table and placed it under the magnification unit. The image appeared on the wall-mounted display, enlarged 40 times. The stone filled the screen. Every facet, every surface, every absence. The room was silent except for the hum of the equipment. I picked up Pearl's loop from the desk. The brass was warm from the lamp. I held it to my eye and leaned in, even though the magnification screen had already told me everything. "Mom," I said, without looking up. "This is not your diamond." Donna's hand went to her bare throat. Neil leaned forward in his chair. Franklin's crossed arms loosened. "This is cubic zirconia in a rhodium-plated commercial setting. Retail value, approximately $40. I straightened up and looked at my mother. The original stone had a natural inclusion in the lower left pavilion facet. A small cloud formation. I documented it myself 6 years ago in a personal appraisal. This stone has no inclusions. It is clean because it was manufactured in a laboratory. Someone removed the real diamond from Grandmother Pearl's pendant and replaced it with a $40 fake." Franklin leaned forward. "That is ridiculous. Those reports can be faked." Ramona stepped forward from her position near the display. She placed a single document on the table. The GIA analysis report, dated, stamped, and bearing her professional seal alongside mine. "I ran the spectroscopic analysis myself," Ramona said. 22 years in this field. The refractive index of that stone is 2.55. Diamond is 2.42. This is not a close call. This is cubic zirconia. The room changed, not loudly. It changed the way a floor changes when you realize the boards are rotten underneath. Donna looked at the display. Franklin looked at the report. Grant shifted his weight toward the door. Tanya did not move. Her hands stayed folded. Her expression stayed patient. But the color behind her ears was rising. "She is lying," Tanya said. She switched it. "She is trying to cover up what she did." "I have not touched this necklace since Thanksgiving," I said. I was still looking through the loop. I set it down gently and picked up a second document. The EstateGems sale listing. Seller, tanya.l.grant@gmail.com. Item, cushion-cut diamond pendant, Art Deco setting, 2.8 carats. Sale date, September 14th. Sale price, $28,000. I placed it next to the GIA report. "You sold the real diamond 11 weeks ago, Tanya, for $28,000. This is the receipt from the platform. This is your email address. This is the buyer's confirmation." Tanya's folded hands separated. One went to the armrest. The other went to her knee. Both were shaking. I placed a third document on the table. The bank deposit screenshot from the shared family cloud album. Grant's checking account. $28,000 deposited the same week as the sale. "This is where the money went," I said. Grant's account. September 20th. Grant took one step backward. Franklin's head turned toward him. Grant did not meet his eyes. He looked at the floor, at the marble, at a spot between his shoes that had suddenly become the most important thing in the room. "And then, there is the insurance claim," I said. The final page. Donna's homeowner's claim for $35,000, filed 2 weeks ago. Tanya's name as the supporting witness. My name listed as the suspected thief. "You convinced Mom to file a claim on a necklace that was not stolen. Tanya, you put her name on a fraud document." The carrier's Special Investigations Unit received my report 4 days ago. An investigator named Deakins is assigned to the case. Franklin's hands went flat on his thighs. His mouth opened slightly. No sound came out. He looked at Tanya, then at the documents on the table, then at the display screen where the fake diamond still sat magnified and exposed. He looked like a man standing in a house that was on fire and realizing he had been the one who left the stove on. Donna's fingers were pressed against her throat where the necklace had been. Her lips moved, but the word that came out was barely there. "Tanya?" Tanya stood up. The chair scraped against the marble. "This is insane," she said, but her voice had lost its softness. "The performance was over. You set this up. You have always been jealous of me. You have always wanted what I have." Neil spoke for the first time. His voice was not loud. It carried the way wood carries sound, steady and dense and impossible to ignore. "Sit down, Tanya." She did not sit. But she stopped talking. And in the silence that followed, every person in that room could hear the faint click of the magnification unit cycling to the next image. The EstateGems listing. Now displayed at full resolution on the wall, with Tanya's email address highlighted in the seller field. Franklin tried to stand. His hands pushed against his thighs, but his legs did not cooperate. He sat back down heavily, the chair sliding an inch on the marble. His jaw was working, opening and closing around words that would not form. He looked like a man watching his own house burn on the evening news and slowly realizing the address is his. The coat he had unbuttoned with such authority 20 minutes ago hung open and limp on his shoulders. Grant walked out. He did not say goodbye. He did not look at Tanya. He did not look at anyone. The glass door of the appraisal suite closed behind him with a soft pneumatic hiss, and Tanya's head turned to watch him go. Ramona picked up the documents from the table and placed them in a protective sleeve, the way she handles any piece of evidence that may be needed later. Calmly, professionally, without looking at Tanya once. For the first time since she was 14 years old, nobody in the room was looking at Tanya with sympathy. I picked up Pearl's loop. The brass was warm. The weight was familiar. Grandma Pearl gave me this when I was 11, I said. She told me the truth is always in the details. She was right. I placed the loop on the examination table next to the documents. I walked past my father, who had not spoken in 4 minutes. I walked past my mother, who was staring at her empty hands. I walked past Tanya, who was standing alone in the center of a room full of evidence she could not erase. And I walked out of my own lab, through the lobby, past the display cases full of authenticated stones, and into the bright Saturday air. Neil caught up to me on the sidewalk. He did not say anything. He just walked beside me for half a block. Then he reached over and squeezed my shoulder once. Firm and brief, the way you steady a post before you drive it home. I drove home with the windows down even though it was cold. The air tasted like winter and gasoline and something I could not name. Something that felt like the space that opens up when a heavy door finally closes behind you. At a red light, I looked at my hands on the wheel. They were steady. They had been steady the whole time. 7 years of holding a loop to other people's valuables, finding the flaw, writing the report, telling the truth even when the truth was not what the client wanted to hear. My hands had been trained for exactly this moment. The only difference was the client. When I got home, I sat at my work desk for a long time. Pearl's loop was at the auction house, on the table next to the documents. I would pick it up on Monday. For now, the desk lamp was on, and the apartment was quiet, and no one was going to knock on my door and ask me to fix something I did not break. If this story made you feel something real, drop a comment telling me you stayed until the end. Subscribe to Family Secret Tales, because every story on this channel is built for the people who survived their family and came out sharper. Now let me tell you what happened after. The fallout arrived in layers, the way it always does when a lie collapses from the center. Grant moved out of the apartment 9 days after the auction house. Tanya found out because his half of the closet was empty when she came home from her mother's house. He left the Audi in the parking garage with 2 months of unpaid registration stickers on the windshield and a note on the dashboard that said, "Talk to your lawyer." Not mine. The $62,000 vehicle sat in that garage for 3 weeks before the finance company sent a recovery crew. Tanya watched from the apartment window as they loaded it onto a flatbed at 7 in the morning. The insurance company denied the claim within 30 days. Deacons contacted Donna directly, informed her that the necklace listed on the claim had been sold, not stolen, and that the supporting documentation contained material misrepresentation. They did not use the word fraud on the phone. They used it in the letter that arrived 4 days later. Donna was given 60 days to return the preliminary payout or face referral. Tanya could not return what she had already spent. The Gucci bag, the restaurant dinners, the back payments on Grant's credit cards. All of it was gone. turned to vapor by a woman who thought no one would ever hold a loop to the evidence. Franklin stopped going to his golf club, not because anyone confronted him there, but because the men he played with had wives, and the wives talked, and the story moved through the neighborhood the way stories always do when they involve a man who threw his daughter into the snow over a lie his other daughter sold him. His regular foursome stopped texting. The club manager called once to ask if he was renewing his membership. Franklin told Donna he was taking a break from the game. He sat in his car in the church parking lot one Sunday morning for 20 minutes, engine running, windshield wipers pushing away a light rain, looking at the front doors. The pastor's wife was standing under the awning greeting families as they arrived. She had heard. Everyone had heard. Franklin put the car in reverse and drove home without getting out. The man who called me a curse could not walk into a building where people might look at him the way he once looked at me. Tanya came to the auction house once, 3 weeks after the examination. She did not call ahead. She walked through the front door in a coat that was too thin for the weather and told the receptionist she wanted to see her sister. The receptionist buzzed my line. I looked at the blinking light for a long time. Then I told her I was unavailable. Tanya sat in the lobby for 41 minutes. She did not read a magazine. She did not check her phone. She sat with her hands in her lap and her eyes on the hallway that led to my office. The same hallway she had walked down 3 weeks ago, surrounded by evidence she could not explain. When she finally stood and walked out, the glass door closed behind her with the same soft sound it had made when Grant left. I watched her through the window. She stood on the sidewalk with one hand on the door handle, not pulling. Her shoulders were hunched forward and her coat hung loose, and she looked, for the first time in her life, like a woman who had run out of people to blame. Then the hand dropped, and she was gone. Donna called once. It was a Sunday evening. The light in my apartment was amber and low, and the garnet I had been grading sat under the desk lamp like a small red planet. Her voice was thin, stretched to the point where you could hear the effort it took to keep it from breaking. "Your father is not eating," she said. "He sits in his chair and he does not turn the television on anymore. Can you come for dinner? We can put all this behind us." "We are still a family, Colette." She did not apologize. She did not say the word sorry. She did not mention the necklace, the insurance claim, the night they locked the door, or the word curse. She mentioned dinner, as if sitting at that table again would somehow rewrite the security footage, the sale receipt, the GIA report, and the 18 years of choosing the wrong daughter. As if family was a word you could use to unlock any door you had previously bolted shut. I almost answered. The old reflex was still there, buried under everything I had built. The muscle memory of fixing things, of smoothing over, of arriving with a solution so nobody had to sit with the mess they made. My mouth opened. The word okay was already forming at the back of my throat. I almost said it. Instead, I said nothing. I placed the phone face down on my kitchen counter. I walked to my work desk. I picked up the garnet, held pearls looped to my eye, and went back to work. The stone was beautiful. Clean and red and entirely mine. There is a specific morning I want to leave you with. A Saturday, 5 weeks after the examination. Early light through the south-facing window of my apartment. The loop is sitting on top of a velvet box on my dresser. Inside the box is a 2.8-carat cushion-cut diamond pendant in an Art Deco platinum setting, circa 1974. I bought it back from the EstateGems buyer at fair market value, using the proceeds from the defamation settlement Tanya's attorney negotiated to avoid a courtroom. The buyer was a collector in Philadelphia who was happy to sell once I showed him the provenance. He said he had wondered about the stone. He said it felt like it belonged to someone. The inclusion is still there. Lower left pavilion facet. A small cloud formation that has been inside that diamond since before my grandmother was born, carried up from the earth, unchanged by everything that happened above it. Somewhere across town, Tanya is signing the paperwork on a studio apartment with a security deposit she borrowed from a friend. because Grant's name is no longer on anything she owns. The Gucci bag is in a consignment shop on Oak Street, with a price tag she set too high, because she cannot admit what it is actually worth. My parents' house is quieter than it has been in 30 years. Franklin sits in his recliner with the television on and the volume too low to hear. Donna washes dishes alone and hums a song that nobody else is listening to. The upstairs window where Tanya watched me leave is dark, and in a converted bank building downtown. Behind brass-framed cases full of stones that other people trusted me to evaluate, my name is on the door of the office I earned with 14 months of night shifts and a $3,000 envelope from the only person in my family who knew which daughter picked up the loop. Last week, Ramona brought me a referral from a probate attorney. The week before, I authenticated a sapphire for a museum in Portland. The work is steady. The work is mine. The truth was always in the details. Pearl told me that when I was 11. She was right then. She is right now. And the details are mine.